One of the most controversial aspects of the Nintendo Switch 2 is the fact that some aspects of its physical media are going to be absolutely pointless, specifically referring to physical versions of games who have this label on them, the game keycard label, because what this represents is a physical game card that doesn't actually contain all of the game data. It allows you access to the download and it allows you access to the game, but it doesn't actually house all of the data. So that means that when servers shut down the line, decades later or whatever, that game key card will be useless. Or as Nintendo puts it, game key cards are different from regular game cards because they don't contain the full game data. Instead, the game key card is your key to downloading the full game to your system via the internet. After it's downloaded, you can play the game by inserting the game key card into your system and starting it up like a standard physical game card. People are pretty pissed that so many games are going to sell physical media in the form of this game key card that is just a glorified digital game. But what people are realizing now is just the sheer scale, the sheer number of games that are going this route, especially where third party is concerned. So right here we have News outlet Gematsu that talked about pre-orders going online in Japan and how just about every third-party game is going to be a game keycard. Here's how Gematsu put it. Switch 2 game pre-orders have been up in Japan for a few hours, revealing all physical third-party games so far except Cyberpunk 2077 that are not Nintendo Switch 2 editions to be shipping on game keycards, which require internet to download the full game. And right here we have a screenshot highlighting some of the third-party titles we can expect in Japan on day one. And all of them have the game keycard label. It's in Japanese, but that's what it says across the board here. And yeah, this is quite the selection of titles that will force you to download games via the internet despite you purchasing the physical media, making the physical media itself kind of pointless, with the only potential use being if you want to resell the game key card or if you want to lend it to somebody else. But in terms of the preservation aspect and you having autonomy over your ability to access your media forever, that's the part that is compromised. Less and less we're owning the content that we purchase, and not owning, the actual IP, but owning the ability to access the product that you purchase. That is disappearing with the digital age, and with physical media either just not being as important as it once used to be, or having alterations like this, like the game key card, that renders the physical media itself pretty much pointless for its intended purpose. And the situation isn't much better out here in the West, with IGN reporting that only 4 third-party Switch 2 games are seeing a physical release that are not game keycards. Those are Cyberpunk 2077, Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion, Rune Factory, Guardians of Ozma, and No Sleep for Kaname Date from the AI The Somnium Files AIBA edition. It is worth noting that the situation is worse in Japan. There are some games that in the West will not be game keycards when it comes to their physical release, but in Japan they will be. So games like Daemon X Machina Titanic Sign and No Sleep for Kaname Date from AI The Somnium Files AIBA edition, those games, the physical editions in the West, are not game keycards, but their Japanese counterparts, you can see, Daemon X Machina will be game keycards. Same thing with the Kaname Date game right here. It will be a game keycard. And yeah, if you go to GameStop right now and look at the games here, you can see that all of this is holding true. Nintendo first-party games and Cyberpunk 2077 and 1 or 2 games like the Rune Factory, Guardians of Ozma, and Daemon X Machina, Titanic Sign, and the Kaname Date games aside, the rest are going to be game keycards. So you can see right here scrolling down, Yakuza 0 is going to be a game keycard. Street Fighter 6 game keycard. All the way in the corner right here, we can see that Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition will also be a game keycard. Then going to the next page, you'll find that Raiden Remastered is going to be a game keycard. You can see it right here. Bravely Default, game keycard, so on and so forth. And then adding insult to injury is the fact that people thought that at the very least, game keycards would get rid of the physical release model, which is just a box with a game code inside that makes it a fully digital product without even the advantage of being able to sell the game keycard or being able to lend the game keycard. We thought Nintendo was doing away with that, with game keycards being a thing now, but turns out that is not the case, as Split Fiction proves it, which is highly unfortunate given Joseph Ferris touts how consumer friendliness is key to him. Well, not with this release. I don't know if it was up to him or not, but either way, this is a situation where you're not even getting a game key card if you buy the physical edition of Split Fiction. You're just getting the code in the box, as some games did on the Nintendo Switch 1. As a Nintendo deal tweeted here, it looks like the Split Fiction Switch 2 physical release is a code in a box, but the notice is in French. And then there are other games like Sonic Shadow Generations, which is not only getting backlash because of the fact that it's a game keycard, there's also a Nintendo Switch 1 game, so people would assume that there is a $10 upgrade path for the Nintendo Switch 2 edition, like you see with titles like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, which are $10 upgrades for the Switch 2 editions, though many argue it should be free. Well, with Sonic Shadow Generations, not only is the physical edition a game keycard, it also says right here that the Nintendo Switch version cannot be upgraded to the Nintendo Switch 2 version, and the same applies to DLC. So if you bought the game on Switch 1 and want to upgrade to Switch 2, then you are forced to repurchase the game all over again to be able to take full advantage of the version of the game that takes full advantage of the Switch 2 hardware. Really, the only outlier when it comes to third party amidst this whole situation is CD Projekt Red, with their commitment to release Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition's physical version on a regular game card, the whole game packed inside, and not just the base game, but also the DLC, and they're doing that across all regions. They're not doing, some regions game key cards, some regions regular cards. Across all regions that this game's coming out on, it's going to be physical media that is actual physical media, the regular game cards that actually allow some semblance of ownership over access to the media that you bought. But yeah, people were already upset that game key cards are a thing at all. And now people are even more upset because they didn't realize to what extent game key cards would dominate the physical games space. Turns out the majority of games, particularly from third party, will be game key cards. And so, people are kind of starting to get worried that physical media will become more and more pointless throughout the lifespan of Switch 2 if the trend becomes that they're going to go the game key cards route instead of what, CD Projekt Red is doing or what Nintendo first-party titles are doing in shipping their games on regular game cards. So Stealth right here, for example, tweeted, "Is it controversial to say I have a bigger issue with the game key cards as the dominant form of physical game delivery on Switch 2 than I do with the $80 games in general? I have a problem with both, but I would say that the bigger issue definitely is game key cards being the dominant form of physical games, because with the price point of games, you can either buy them used from other retailers or from, gray markets, or, there are ways in which you can wait to have like a reduced priced version of that purchase of that game, or, find other outlets where you can find reduced prices. But when it comes to game key cards, that is like a permanent thing where the physical media is not a true physical media in the sense of, how VHS and cartridges and CDs and, DVDs and Blu-rays function back in the day when all of the game would be included in the physical media. And it gives you permanent access to the product and the media within that physical version. So long as you take care of your physical media, nobody can come into your house and take it away from you. They can't disable it. You will be able to use it for however long you like. And I mean, if you're paying $60 to $80 for a physical game, the least they can do is ensure that the physical media is a proper physical media. But the fact that they're not even doing that, I mean, it just further marks how much the games industry wants to step away from proper physical media, and it sucks to see. Here we have somebody else, Emily, talking about how, yes, game key cards will allow you to resell them, but they question who is willing to buy or use game key cards. Digital buyers like the convenience of digital, and physical collectors like media ownership. Key cards offer none of that, so let's stop kidding ourselves. Basically suggesting that game key cards are the worst of both worlds. For those who do enjoy digital, they don't want to carry around a bunch of cards that you need to insert into your Switch 2 to access your downloaded digital media. And for those who enjoy physical media, they won't like the fact that the physical media does not contain all the game data. You do have to download the game anyway. It will occupy space in your Switch 2 or in, the SD card. And one day, even if it's decades down the line, you will lose access to the product that you bought because it is dependent on an internet connection. It is dependent on you having the means to download the game, and it is dependent on some kind of online verification that, tries to confirm that you bought the game and you own the game. There is some kind of DRM associated. And so, it appeals to nobody. It ultimately is just a lesser version of digital and a lesser version of physical. Now, Daniel Ahmad here, who is a games industry analyst, tries to break down why game key cards are kind of starting to dominate the physical media space. This is not him justifying the situation. It's just him trying to break down some of the factors that are involved here. So Daniel Ahmad posted the following quick explainer. Number one, 64 gigabyte game cards are significantly more expensive than discs. You have to price it above $60 given margins. Number two, it takes time to ramp up different capacity game cards, so game key cards are main option. And number three, digital game / key cards equals higher margin, plus can price under $60. So it's a combination of the cost of the game cards themselves and having to ship a bunch of those, whereas with digital, you have it may very well be that game cards with the appropriate amount of memory to fit the entirety of a game in are not as readily available, and so certain companies are forced to just ship game key cards to be able to launch their games alongside the Switch 2's launch. But when you see a company like CD Projekt Red fully dedicating to releasing their game, Cyberpunk 2077 plus Phantom Liberty, on a regular game card and insisting that this is the way to go across all regions, I mean, you can see that other companies could put more effort in that respect. And if it means that it takes more time to ramp up in terms of the supply of regular game cards and seeing the physical releases come out at a rate of supply that demand can keep up with, then so be it. I'd rather have to wait for, physical media to catch up in terms of the supply and them selling out and having to restock over time than getting a physical version of the game now that is not an actual physical version of the game, or that is a diminished version of a physical version of a game. But here's the thing, game companies know that they can get away with it. They know that digital is more popular, so not as many people will complain. They know that a lot of physical media these days do require installation, so generally it's not going to seem like it's anything new to the masses. But for purists of physical media who understand the implications of an all-digital future and the amount of control you won't have over your access to your purchased media, this stuff is really important. And for those folks, they see the writing on the wall on how bad this will get if game key cards become the norm and not the exception. And looking at the launch lineup of the Switch 2 and how many of those third-party games, the vast majority, are game key cards, that's already not a good sign. And so, yeah, people are kind of talking all about that on social media and are not particularly happy with the handling of physical media, with Nintendo kind of enabling this and with a lot of companies pushing for the game key cards method instead of going the more consumer-friendly route of regular game cards that give people some semblance of security in feeling like they do own the thing that they bought. And so, yeah, something else worth keeping in mind when it comes to participating in the Switch 2 ecosystem, and that's alongside all the increase in prices for, games MSRPs now being at $80 slowly but surely. A lot of games are kind of going to hit that price point. Switch 2 editions of games are also anywhere from $70 to $80 and $90 if you want to play the complete version of Breath of the Wild on the Nintendo Switch 2. Accessories are more expensive because of tariffs. So keep all of that in mind. At the end of the day, you make the consumer purchase decision that you want to make, but at the very least, be informed about it and be sure you know all of the factors in play before you decide whether the Switch 2 ecosystem is something you can partake in. But yeah, the game key cards thing, it just sucks that this is so normalized and that this is kind of where the trend of physical media is headed towards. It really does suck. Or at the very least, that's one man's take. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on game key cards and how many Switch 2 launch titles, especially where third party is concerned, are game key cards. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.